Hi everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. I talk about books on this channel, mainly books about magic, and if you want to see more of that, you can subscribe down below. Welcome or welcome back, and today we are going to be doing my February wrap-up. Hello everyone. So last month I called this my February reset, and I kind of felt like that was inaccurate because we were talking about the things that I accomplished in January. So I think I'm going to call this my wrap up and review, kind of to distinguish it from a traditional wrap up, but I liked this format a lot and so did a lot of you. So we're going to stick with this for now. So basically what I did last month was kind of go over my stats for the month, as well as some of the books that I read and kind of how they fit into the challenges, kind of a more overview of how my month went, rather than talking about just the books I read and holding up an individual book and talking about it for like 30 seconds. This was more of a review of how my month went. And I think I'm going to try to incorporate the highs and lows of my ratings into here. I think I have things a little more organized this time, but since both of us kind of liked this more, I think we're going to stick with this for now. It might evolve and change over time, but overall, I think we're going to stick with this because I liked it and several of you did too. So just like last month, we are going to start with my bookish stats and talk about how my reading went in terms of numbers. So I have them all written out here in my book journal, so I'm also going to show them on the screen, but I have to look down to read. So in February, I read 14 books, finished 14 things. I really had a successful reading month. I read a lot. Some of this is due to the fact that I participated in Clue and we had Chaos Weekend where I read more short things. However, I still read quite a number of novels as well. I DNF'd 4 books, which is a little higher than normal, but I was reading some arcs that were a bit older and I simply didn't enjoy them and ended up DNFing them. Then I also unhauled 4 books without reading them. I took them off my physical TBR shelf, saying that these were books that I wasn't interested in reading, and I just think it's not the right time for them to be on my shelves. So a pretty successful month overall, I think. I also wanted to add the stat in here that I read 914 pages physically and listened to 80 hours of audiobook. Now, what I usually do is if I like immersion read, listen to the audiobook and read at the same time, I count those as audiobook hours because that's usually what ends up being the higher percentage, because if I get distracted, if I get up, whatever, I'll put the book down and keep listening to the audiobook, so I count them as hours listened rather than trying to split it. As far as my format goes, I listened to 9 audiobooks, I read 3 ebooks, I read 2 books physically, and then I immersion or mixture read 4 of them. I'm slowly getting into adding my audiobook and physical reading together and doing that immersion reading, and I am enjoying it, so that I anticipate staying at least a percentage of my reads each month, if not growing over time. Then for my genre breakdown, my highest numbers were for romance, which was really interesting. I did DNF a couple of these, so it's not necessarily that I successfully read 6 romance books, but those were the genres of the books that I picked up. I read 5 fantasies, 2 paranormal, and 1 sci-fi. Those were like the big ones. There are a couple other in here as well, but those were the ones that were the main genres. Then this is my breakdown of ratings, which I found really interesting. I'm really happy that I have everything of a 3-star and above. Honestly, at this point, I mostly DNF books that I am going to rate lower than a 3-star, simply because I don't want to waste my time. If I think about DNFing, I know I'm going to be focused on that and not the book. So a lot of times I end up DNFing and not rating a book as lowly as I would if I finished it. But overall, I'm just really happy with this spread since it basically goes up and I have the most books at the higher end of the scale. Then out of the books that I rated this month, I ended up at a 4.3 stars average, which is fantastic. Now this doesn't take into account my DNFs, so I just don't rate DNFs usually, so that doesn't bring my rating down. But out of the things that I finished and rated, it was a 4.3, which is just incredible. Next, we're going to move into my challenges and things that I'm keeping track of this year. The first is my bingo board, and this is the end result of the bingo board for February. I mentioned at the beginning of the month that I was going to put something different in each square because I wanted to give myself as many different options for Clue as possible. However, I did, as the month went on, I knew I wasn't going to read 25 books, so I did double and triple up in a couple of places, but I did end up getting 1 bingo on the one side. I think under B, or what would be B. And I just thought this was a pretty successful board. Not terribly. I didn't read quite as widely as I wanted to, and I definitely didn't stick to my TBR for Chaos Weekend and stuff like that. And I started to get a little burnout at the end of the month, so I didn't cover it quite as much as I wanted to, but I'm still really happy with how much I got accomplished on this board this month. The larger boards are always really difficult to kind of cover everything because there's so many different prompts, but this month I feel like I did a pretty good job. So as far as my physical TBR goes, there is something amiss here, but we are going to talk about that in just a second. I'm going to give you the numbers and then I'm going to tell you what I think is wrong. So at the beginning of the month, I started at 75 books. In January, I had basically ended up with a net zero, like no gain, no loss. We stayed at 75. So that's where we started at the beginning of February. I bought 4 books, but only 1 is being added to my TBR, and that isn't even here yet because that's Faithbreaker. So even though I purchased it, it didn't get added to the collection yet, but I did want to like mark it down as one that I purchased that is a book that I will have to read. Then I read 4 of my physical TBR books, taking them off the shelves, reading them and enjoying them and finishing them. Then I also had 7 books on the TBR that I either DNF'd or unhauled for various reasons. So there's several that I did DNF, there's several that I pulled off and decided to unhaul unread. So in total, that ends up at 11. So if we do the math, 75 minus 11 is 64. However, there is something wrong in my spreadsheet here because I did count my TBR shelf when I was looking at it, and I realized there's like 6 or 7 books missing, and I don't know where they are because I went through and made sure I had everything on my spreadsheet. So either I'm missing something or something's wrong. Something is wrong here. So we're not quite accurate with our numbers here. So at one point this month, I was kind of moving some books around on my TBR spreadsheet, and I don't know if I deleted some things or if they were never there, but I need to figure out what's wrong. So one of my goals in March is to kind of go through this and figure out what's missing, what's wrong, and take, a better inventory because I wanted to have my TBR this coming year. And if I don't have all the books there, then that's not going to happen. So this is something I have to correct, but we're going to have to do like a little bit of an audit here in the second month of the year and figure out what's wrong with my spreadsheet. In February, the only readathon I participated in was Get a Clue, hosted by Rainey from Rainy Blue Reads, and I was a lead investigator, so I did follow the prompts for each room, but I was jumping around to different rooms and reading for different purposes, and I ended up getting as far as the library, which I think is the second to last prompt. I didn't finish the library and I didn't finish the hall, so I got pretty close to the end, but I didn't quite get finished. Like I said earlier in the video, I kind of got burnt out till the end of the month. I hit a bit of a wall, but I'm really happy with as far as I got and how much I read this month, and I thought it was a pretty successful readathon for me personally. Now we have the challenges, and I have been doing this section because I signed up for so many different bingo board and title challenges this year, and I really want to keep track of all of the ones that I'm participating in. So I'm going to go through them really quick and what I applied to each board for the month. So for 25 and 25 from Bree at Four Paws in a Book, I ended up adding 3 squares this month with over 400 pages. I added Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. Then I also covered up the square of Involves Travel by using You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. And I'm really trying with this board to only use my physical TBR reads for this. So even if I'm reading other things, I'm trying to focus on adding things to this board that are from my physical TBR. That might change in the second half of the year, but for right now, that is the goal. Then for the series takedown challenge from Rainy at Rainy Blue Reads, I added 4 check marks. I'm not crossing off these squares, I'm just adding checks to tally how many times I accomplished them in the course of the year. So for finish a series, this is like not quite true. This is a little bit of a stretch. I read Into the Drowning Deep novella, so that did finish that series. I've read the full book and the prequel novella, so that's done. Then we have Fave Author series. I continued reading the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire, so that counts for this. I read the second book in the Singing Hills series. by Nevo, and I ended up putting a check mark here for that second book. And then I also started the Singing Hill series. I read both volumes 1 and 2 this month, so I started a series by a BIPOC author. So that's the series takedown challenge. I don't know that I'm really accomplishing that much because I'm really starting a lot of series, but we'll see how it all balances out at the end of the year. For Buzzwordathon, for the second month in a row, I completed the buzzword challenges in the month they are assigned. So for water words, I read Spooky Lakes by Geo Rutherford. And then for the Skyline, I applied You Should Be So Lucky. I'm not anticipating that that's going to happen every month, but I said that last month and then it's happened 2 months in a row. So we're going to see if we can keep it going. Then for Sufferathon, I lost track of the video where the challenge is, but what I had written down was that I was supposed to read a book with multiple people on the cover in order to accomplish the task of helping others within my rowboat. So I did that with Wash Day Diaries by Jamalia Rouser, and I think that's correct, but I simply can't find the video again. So I'm taking a better note for March, but I think I've accomplished both January and February for Sufferathon. I also have to update you on my bingo board from Hell Squares. So there's 9 here. So we're going to go through these relatively quickly. So the first is to reduce my TBR by 50%. Like I said, this is a bit of a question mark right now. I have to figure out what is going on with this square, but I did reduce it this month. I just don't know by how much. Then we have the challenge to read 4 nonfiction books, and I've read 1, which is Spooky Lakes by Geo Rutherford. This isn't exactly the type of nonfiction that I want to be reading for this square, but it is nonfiction, so it's going to count. Then I'm supposed to read 12 buddy reads in this year, and I've done 3 so far. We did 1 this month. I read Ace of Spades with a group of friends, and that was really interesting and fun. And so now my count is up to 3 buddy reads. I'm supposed to be physically visiting the library 4 times this year, and I have not done it once yet. I'm sorry, the cold has kept me in my house. I haven't ventured out to the library yet. I'm planning on doing it very soon, especially as we get into the warmer months. I want to do it at least once in this first quarter, so it will happen sometime in March. Then I also want to listen to 75 audiobooks. I'm up to 14, which is 19%, which is, I think, pretty much on track, since if we want to hit 25% by the end of March, I will probably do that. I'd like to reduce my ongoing series by 25%. That is the goal that I wrote down at the beginning of the year, but I think I might have to change this around. I don't know how I'm going to calculate it, and as Wynn would say, we don't want the square to not work for us, so I think I'm going to have to change up either the wording or the goal here to kind of make it more achievable and me to understand what I have to do in order to make it work. So I think the wording on that one just isn't going to, I don't think it's a good goal because it's not super clear where I started and how to get to what I wanted to accomplish. I also want to post 12 YouTube reviews. I've done 1 in February. I've also been posting shorts of some of my book reviews. So I want to do like longer form reviews, but I also like doing the short form because they're fun. So I've done 1 this month. So we'll have to catch up some month if I want to do this goal, but for now, doing 1 a month is probably a good start. Then I also want to clear TBR books, my physical TBR books from before 2022. I honestly didn't check. I feel like I probably did work on that with some of my unhauls and readings and such, but I have to double check. I didn't really check the count on this one. My bad. Then my last challenge is one that I've added kind of recently. I started doing the Read What You Own challenge from Izzy and Shay, and the 2 of them have a template and a Discord about this, and I put down the start numbers are the ones that I started with at the beginning of February. I had kind of calculated them at the end of January, but these big drops are because I was doing more organization. Basically, I wanted to take a look at some of the things that I had on my audiobook TBR, for example, were not marked as finished, even though I had finished the book. Same with my ebook TBR, and my physical TBR, as we've talked about a couple of times now, is a little wonky. So I will be kind of trying to update this as we go along, but these big like 30 book drops weren't because of my reading. They were because I was like correcting the start point. So even though I had 160 ebooks, a lot of them were books that I, had read already. I did go through and permanently delete some that I don't think I'm going to be interested in, and just kind of taking a look like that. So this is more like I'm establishing a better baseline. So I'm not sure where to put that on this graphic, but maybe we'll move these numbers over to the start area now that I've kind of course corrected, but I haven't decided yet because, you know, part of the work was cleaning up the libraries, making sure everything's correct and all of that stuff. So I don't want to take away from what I did there, but it's also like this is a more accurate picture here at the end of the month than it was at the beginning of the month. And then I'm going to tell you my favorite and least favorite book of the month. So my favorite book of the month was You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. This is a historically set queer romance about a baseball player and a reporter who meet because the baseball player is in a historic slump and the reporter is going to cover that story. However, when the two of them meet, their sparks fly and they have to try and figure out how they want to proceed with their relationship. What do they want it to be? Because each of them is going through something difficult. The baseball player is going through this slump and being traded to a team that is far away from home. Meanwhile, our reporter has lost his partner. His partner has passed away and he's working through the grief of that. And I just loved this story. There was a lot of baseball in it. There was a lot of feelings in it. It was a complex and emotional read, and I just really enjoyed it. It was a slow burn, and I had a grand time reading this at the beginning of February. Then my least favorite book of the month was The Mistress Experience by Scarlett Peckham. This is the third and final book in the Sirens series that this author has written, and I really enjoyed the first two books. In this, we're following a group of friends who is each getting their own romance, but they're trying to raise money to start a school for young women and girls to get an education as well as learn trades and skills so that they don't have to work the streets or don't have to rely on men for their income. And in this third book, we're following a courtesan who auctions off a month of her time in order to pay for that final bit of the school to be built and created. However, I didn't really like the characterization of either of these characters. I was really frustrated overall by the behavior in here, and I didn't quite understand why the author made the choices that she did with these characters. So I didn't love this one, and I think it's my least favorite of the month because the first two I did enjoy and have a good time with, and this one really disappointed me. I ended up DNFing it. So that's how that one went for me. But that is everything that I worked on and accomplished and read in the month of February. That's kind of why we're calling it wrap up and review now, because we kind of wrap things up and review how it went. If you have any thoughts or feelings or want to share anything about the books that I read in the month of February or the stats and what I shared with you, go ahead and let me know down below. If you aren't feeling chatty, just go ahead and leave me a book stack emoji. But that's everything I have for you today. If you want to spend more time on this channel, you can check out this video. That's the one YouTube is going to think that you are going to enjoy the most. And then I'm also going to link you to our first genre blend comp club. This wrap up got a bit delayed, so this has already happened, but you can definitely still check out the playback live show that's going to be going up on Saturday, March 8th, if you'd like to join us for the live or the playback. But Brittany and I are going to be discussing The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy with a couple of our friends to see if it's a true genre blend or if we think it's one genre or the other. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!